Pushing yourself out here, y'all. Pay too much to the competition. Don't worry about what other people doing. Gotta trust your process. Worry about yourself, like I'm saying, man. It's bigger than me, bigger than you. You know what I mean? If you know what you gotta do, then do it. You're always making excuses, we ain't got time for no excuses. You gotta get it, man. You know what I'm saying? Don't let nobody hold you back. Don't about that negativity, suggestions. Fuck all that shit, my nigga. Yeah. No competition. I'm feeling so fabulous. You niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet. Tell your homies stop gassing you before we pull up and embarrass you. No competition. I'm feeling so fabulous, and you niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet. Tell your homies stop gassing you before we pull up and embarrass you. Yeah. Still watching for clones, but they all over the globe. Probably why I say whoa. Young nigga never made money from stoves, but went hard with the zones. Me and Henny broke it down way before. Now we killing shows, just act like you know. Whoa. Got a new bitch from the bottom. Still never change out my niggas from potters. Honest, I've been feeling golly. You get in my way, then you leave me no option. Niggas thinking this a race, till we put them in their place. Leave their family with a ghost, then we pull off in a race. Competition. I'm feeling so fabulous, and you niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet. Tell your homies stop gassing you before we pull up and embarrass you. No competition. I'm feeling so fabulous, and you niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet. Tell your homies stop gassing you before we pull up and embarrass you.
It's no competition. You niggas be lying about how you be feeling, saying you Jordan, you not even Pippin. Or Rodman when he was with Pistons. You blondie, you lying about all of your visions. Your paper be short like some midgets. I used to step out and just worry about digits, and now I just focus on visions. I had to distance myself from some people cause they just be holding you back. I wasted some time, I never get back. Like why I do that? You niggas be bitching, it's just to be seen and put on the map. I only know some niggas who know how to spin up a check and get it right back.
No competition. I'm feeling so fabulous, and you niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet.
Welcome everybody to a very special edition of the Blackout, which I'm calling the trans out today, because the entire day, the Blackout and then Hot program are going to be completely dedicated to trans issues, as will our movie night tonight. We're going to have a movie night in the cafe. We'll be in the cafe all day, so join us tonight for a couple of what are apparently spectacular, very highly reviewed trans movies, because I think we gotta get into the culture. Why not? But we're so happy to have Lina here with us today. We've got about a half hour or so to interview Lina, but Lina, let's go. Uncle Bobby's here. Let's go ahead and get into it.
Right here. Yeah, let's jump into this shit.
Let's jump into this
Bobby.
shit. All right, so before we get going, let's quick cheers, everybody. Appreciate you. I know, Lina, you got your vape with you. So, Lina, let's go ahead and be clear. You don't need a whole lot of prompts. You don't need a whole lot of questions. You certainly have a powerful voice in this community.
Hold on. Wait.
Go ahead.
Are we just going to sit here and act like Lina just did not take the world's biggest monster drag? I'm just like, bitch, when are you going to stop? That cartridge is not unlimited. I like how no one is like, oh, we're just going to jump right into it. She's still saying,
Hey, Mo, baby.
I'm a big Meat fan.
No, go ahead. I just like how no one
I love
noticed.
it.
Look, and she's going to do it again.
So, Lina, what the hell is going on in our community? And from your perspective, what is going on with the escalation of the anti-trans rhetoric, and how did you come to, oppose it? Like, what? Like, how did you decide to, like, I got to get in this? I can't keep sitting on the sideline.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly new for me, but it's not new for the world, and it's not an issue that's new despite what Trump wants to say about it. But it is certainly new for me, and so it's been, a struggle over the past couple years of exploring my gender identity. And then, the struggle with living in the U.S. and not having access to the healthcare that would, one, help me determine whether that full transitioning is something I want to do, but also having that access to full transitioning. So it's the therapy side and the medical side that I don't have access to in this country, which is a problem on its own. But facing that personal struggle helped me to realize what was going on in this country. And I really didn't even realize how bad the problem was until after Trump. And I think that is a lot of us in this situation. So I'm just happy that we're addressing it now and that it's not too late. Or at least I don't think it's too late. There have been tons of anti-trans bills that have been attempted to be passed by Republicans and by red legislators. And so we are, I believe, in the midst of a trans genocide, at least the start of it. And I don't want to be an alarmist, but I think that the warning signs are all there. I think if we look historically, we're seeing a lot of the same warning signs that came up in previous fascistic regimes. And so, yeah, this is going to be a really scary election if Trump wins.
This is part of what bothers me about us. You had this 2-3 hour conversation with Doug from PineCreek. It was almost like half and half, trans issues and global warming. But he then did a stream, I don't know, couldn't have been 2 days later. And the whole thing was about alarmism. And that really pissed me off because it's like he sat there face to face with you, hearing you explain the seriousness of all these issues, and then turns around and makes a stream suggesting the real problem is that we're worried about these things. So how do you deal with this now? Because you've seen me try to confront Doug in particular, but some other people's, and you know me, I'm kind of like Uncle Bobby. I'm just ready to fight. I go from 0 to 100 real fast, and I'm snapping on people all over the internet. And then people are telling me I'm too emotional, I'm not being helpful.
You're unfortunately. It unfortunately does play into their rhetoric, and it's something that the trans community faces a lot, where the left gets accused of constantly bringing up trans issues and only caring about trans issues, and they just won't shut up about the trans people. Well, we only bring it up so much because of how much pushback there is from our enemies. So it's a form of gaslighting.
I was going to say it's so gaslighting and then tell you that you're being alarmist. You're like,
which of course they're going to use that word gaslighting to say that we're...
If I may say, my problem with that is like, you're goddamn right. I'm getting emotional. Probably because this is a very emotional topic. And it's kind of conservative 101, where calm equals correct. Well, why are you getting so
exactly?
I just want to talk about the facts. Yeah, but what you seem to be missing is that trans people are hurting themselves at this phenomenal rate, and it's because of your fucked up ass rhetoric, your narrative, and the bills that you're trying to pass. I don't want to get upset. I don't give a shit. I don't have time to be nice.
Exactly.
And so when they sit there and they say, well, you're just getting emotional, it's because it's a very emotional topic. And so I don't think we should let them use that against us. Like it's a pejorative, like now we need to calm down. It's like, I'm not going to calm down. I live in a state where the governor has literally turned this joint into Nazi Germany, to where you have to lie and hide the fact that you have contact with a trans teenager. Because if you don't, if you are a professional of any kind, you will get your license and certification and your ability to make a living snatched away from you. So yeah, it's time to get emotional about these very emotional topics.
Absolutely.
I just had to throw that in there.
Yeah, I agree. So Lina, the question for you is, how do you deal with that? Because I see you deal with this. Okay, and let me just put it to you this way. I'm emotional about almost everything that I care about, but I can be a little bit calmer as it gets further away from my identity. So you start talking about race, I'm losing it instantly. Mental health, losing it instantly. You start talking about things I don't identify with, I'm still probably losing it, but maybe not as quickly. To me, I see you have these conversations, and I know this issue touches you every day, but you're normally the calmest person in the room. And then even when you're talking to these people, which you pull up on them, I don't know if you've seen this, Uncle Bob, but Lina pulls up, it's like, hey, you're a fascist. We really need to talk about how your religion makes you a fascist. But you do it so calmly. And I don't know, is that a superpower you've cultivated, or is it that you're just hiding, you've pushed the rage down because you've realized it's not helpful? But how do you do that? I really admire
I think it is. I appreciate that. I think it is a superpower in some regards. I've had a number of experiences in my life that helped me open up emotionally and empathetically. I think I'm just a high empathy person. So, I mean, I'll set my case aside and just kind of speak to how our community can get involved and how we can push back and fight for trans rights, which we have to engage the conversation, right? The way that we move forward on the political front is by getting public support, and the only way to get public support is to have the conversations.
Wow.
And so it's this difficult negotiating between, yes, engaging with the other side, but also not legitimizing them. And I think it's a struggle that we've seen in other aspects, like with creationism, and the whole controversy over whether you should have even had that Hovind debate. Right? It's like, how much should we be giving intellectual credibility to trans folks? To some extent, we do, because to some extent, it is a new issue for a lot of Americans who don't understand the political situation, mainly because a lot of people in America don't care about politics.
Right.
They don't see how it relates to people's individual lives. And so I think it's really important as someone in the community to be vocal and to encourage members of the community to be vocal. Because at the end of the day, I'm protecting myself and the like-minded people that I share this planet with. I
needed that encouragement, and maybe Uncle Bobby did too, because there are times where trying to be a vocal ally, I just feel bad. I feel bad that it's like, let's make another show about trans. Let's make another show about the Christian view of trans people, because I'm like, this shouldn't be an issue. And I feel bad sometimes that we're doing so much content about it, yet at the same time, this is happening. And I'm like, if we don't make the content about it, or if we don't have the conversation, we're looking the other way too, right? And I'm like, and so I feel that tension, and I really do thank Uncle Bobby for it, because he does a lot of content on these issues, right? And it kind of made me say, like, no, this is something we should be talking about, and but yeah, it's a real struggle, because I don't even like the feeling of, using our queer fam as, content or the political football of the day, right? Like, I don't even like having these conversations about politics, right? Because to me, this is a social issue. It's an interpersonal issue. We're talking about people's lives. And then when Jordan Peterson or somebody, has a radical anti-trans take, we don't tell him he's a bigot. We don't tell him he's an asshole. What we said is, well, you've taken some heat recently for your controversial political stances. And I'm like, no. A controversial political stance is like trickle-down economics, or, some kind of border policy, or something that's supposed to be in the realms of the political toolkit. But now we've done this thing where, and maybe it's not new, but to where the culture war is the issue. So now when you're hating on people. We're not allowed to call you out for hating on people. We've got to pretend we're having a reasonable debate about some policy, and drives me up a wall.
Well, I think there's silver linings there. I mean, I think that young people getting more involved in politics and the culture war taking a more center stage in social media. I think these are
that's a very good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Probably good things. Yeah. So I mean, I think a lot of that rhetoric is just coming from our opposition.
So you're basically saying that maybe these culture war issues shouldn't be the political conversation of the day, but since they are, and since they're thing that progressive people care about, it's motivating us to action. Potentially.
Yeah, and you know, I could say a whole thing about how the consumerist social media, you know, marketplace that we have right now just demands clicks and views and things to trend, and sort of feeds into the worst parts of our attention span. Setting all that aside, I mean, I'm happy to see that this is becoming a mainstream issue, and I kind of wanted to ask Uncle Bobby a bit about, you know, because you're a lot older than I am. How have you seen this develop in your lifetime?
To a point where I don't recognize where I am standing today. And that, well, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, like it's gotten
absolutely
worse.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, there it is. My thing just went blank there. As in, like small town Louisiana, military installation Texas, there was no talk about LGBTQ plus issues. And the only talk that you had was just slinging mud. It was slurs. It was terrible looking back at it. And that was the only talk about being gay, being lesbian, being trans. If you would have said non-binary in 1972, again, it would be like, I don't know what they sing. To remind me again, I don't recognize it, because now we're in a spot to where these topics are not just now being talked about, but they're now being talked about with an educated tongue. And I'm glad that I've been able to see the progression, because, again, I was no better because I didn't know any better. You say gay to me, I say faggot back to you.
Yeah.
No one said that's a slur. And then was like, is it bad, really? But it has progressed. And I'm glad, again, I appreciate experiencing the
Lina, you just got the wind again. I don't know why. Something changed.
Well, I was going to ask a quick question, and then I'll mute.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So do you see that as being connected, because I do, to the civil rights movement and to progressivism as an ideology? Did you want to maybe speak to that a bit?
Oh, yeah. I think the two walk hand in hand. That's why I do think this is a political issue, just like Black people getting equal rights. It should not have been political. We're humans. But it had to be political first before it became something social. And so, yeah, the LGBTQ plus march is 100. Yeah, it walks hand in hand. These things have to be political first. We have to get people like Greg Abbott to shut the fuck up, because as long as he's there, this is political. We spent millions of dollars on.
And he lost his nonprofit status, correct?
I hope so, and I hope he loses his fucking job.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I'm thinking it should probably be more than that for the hate speech.
So wait, he has a nonprofit and he lost. I didn't realize he had a nonprofit.
Well, he had his own church, or he still does have his own church, right?
Greg Abbott?
Is that not right?
Wait, are you talking about the governor of Texas?
Oh, who am I thinking of?
You're thinking of Greg Locke.
My apologies.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm glad to hear he lost his nonprofit status. I didn't know that. What I was going to say is a couple things. Yeah. One, you bring up a heavy point about activism, because I think we have a generation of people, even, you know, relatively conservative white people, who would say that the civil rights movement, you know, a generation ago is what got them off the bench politically, right? Like, that was big, right? It was the civil rights and Nam, right? For a lot of people opposing the war, right? That really is where people gain consciousness politically, I think. And maybe this will be one of those issues for our day. But bringing it back to like how Uncle Bobby said when he grew up, like this is how I grew up. When I grew up, I never imagined this world could be here. So a lot of y'all know I was the only black kid in my school, but we also had like the one gay dude, right? And so hanging out, it was like most of the popular girls, token black guy, token gay dude. And we knew time was on our side. Yes, there was some people that wanted to pick on Joey for being gay, and some older brothers that didn't want me dating their sisters, mostly because they didn't want to get picked on with all the jokes. But we knew that time was on our side. Like, we're marching towards a world where it's cool to be gay. I remember when the gay person in our class came out, we were like, Joey, we've been knew you gay, but we're happy you're comfortable telling us.
Yeah,
right?
and
But
it shows
you've been out
in
to us.
Christianity. It shows in the rift in Christians, I think, most clearly.
Absolutely. So I had no idea that fast forward 20 years and we'd be moving backwards. It's becoming, somebody's just said the number of police shootings is highest this year than it's ever been in the history of the data. So we're killing what? More people since George Floyd? We're getting more police violence, right? But we're getting more racial problems, and we're getting more anti-trans rhetoric and more anti-LGBT violence. When I remember as a freshman in college, when I first realized I'm an ally, I'm showing up at the LGBTQ events, I'm making sure they know when they need me, call me, and I'm hearing their stories of violence, I definitely thought that was on the way out. Here we are, almost a generation of college students later, and it's worse now than it was then. And I was wrong. I didn't see it. I didn't see this coming. Did not see this coming.
Well, you know me, as a socialist, I think it's a lot to do with the progression into late stage capitalism. We've seen the exacerbation of a lot of the same problems that have been and continue to lead to these social tensions.
What's something you can tell us, those of us that are allies, right? A lot of times our allyship we get from websites and atheist YouTube debates, or what we think the politically correct thing to do is. What would somebody with more lived experience actually say? Here's what I would want my allies to understand.
Good question.
Well, boy, I was gonna take it into a whole political thing.
Oh, you can if you prefer to.
Please.
Well, I mean, I want to maybe start by making it more, humanized and personal, and just recognize that I didn't think I'd be the one to be like I was quite caught off guard by like my own coming out to myself and understanding myself.
Wow.
And I think a lot of the reason why it took me until my 20s to even begin to start questioning these things was because of the religious indoctrination that I faced. And even till now, I think I have lingering subconscious sentiments of homophobia that I kind of will occasionally catch myself and realize, oh, that was a nasty thought, like, or just like a nasty feeling to something that I realized was instilled in me pretty young, and so yeah, there's just this whole aspect of self-hatred that Christianity is that's it's fundamental to it. It's a core component, and this is something that Uncle Bobby, you've spoken to time and time again. And so, yeah, if you're someone who wants to be an ally, just try and remember that it could be anyone in your family. It could be you, down the line. I don't think that the things that make us different are all that drastic. I think that we're far more all alike, and I think that's the part that we should focus on.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I felt like it was such a great answer, and it was actually the answer I needed to hear, because
Absolutely.
sometimes it's not so much about the science or you know, whatever the political rhetoric of the day, it's like, yo, I have a friend, right? And when this issue comes up, you're talking about my friend, right? Like, let's make it personal. Matter of fact, other times when I want to talk to my family about something, even if it's just something related to faith or being an atheist, I will often use the experience of someone in the community, right? So I think Wayne's talked about it, but he lost a family member, kind of alarming, kind of a little deathbed worship. Let's put on the televangelist, and they got all types of jacked up about evolution. He had a conversation with his parent about it. Well, that led to me to have a conversation with my mom, because I was like, yo, I have a friend, boom, who had this experience. Then I could use that story to express my fears, my trepidation, right? And so to your point, like making it personal, helping people realize this isn't just a Fox News segment that we disagree with. You're talking about the lives of our friends.
Although I will say that one Fox News segment did make it very personal. I'll give my
which one is this?
Praise. I think
Which one?
Was it Ryan? Was the kid's name? There was a trans boy who was on a Fox News interview. It was like that was a big deal. Yeah, it was like their first.
No, which one was that?
I think it's their only pro-trans interview they've ever had.
Wow.
So,
really?
yeah, you should be able to find that pretty easily.
I'm looking for that.
Yeah, journalist slams pressure on tomboys to become transgender. Was it recently?
I think it was like a week or so ago, or maybe a month.
11 days ago, maybe?
No, it might have been a month or so ago.
All right,
Wow.
if somebody finds it, let me know.
Like, I remember Jazz. Tommy Lahren kind of had a back and forth with a trans girl, you know, named Jazz. Jazz even had her own reality TV show. And I was shocked to see Jazz on a hyper-conservative network. Like, I think it was when she was with whatever the fuck Beck's channel was. But this one I haven't heard. I definitely want it. If someone can find that.
If somebody finds it,
please.
drop it in the Discord and let us know. Lina, how did you become part of this community? Tell me about what this community means to you, because you're like me, you're pretty community heavy out here. Like you're definitely here for more than just the YouTube content. But at the same time, yeah, sure, the community's here and that's great, but now you're hearing and you're exposed to all the rhetoric, right? And then you've kind of thrown your hat in the ring on some of that stuff. So can you just describe that process? Because we rarely know how our YouTube friends came to be our YouTube friends.
Yeah, well, I mean, COVID was a thing, right? So
yeah, I was wondering if it was COVID for you too. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and that just kind of led into distancing and losing some of my old friends who I'm not too upset about, because I realized that, you know, they weren't the strongest allies. And I think that the community that we have now is so great because it's so supportive, because we've been able to find all of the like-minded people that care about the issues that we care about. The flip side of that is, of course, that means we're engaging with our opposition, and so that gets built into our sense of community. Yeah, and I don't necessarily consider the people that we're trying to wax on and refute as part of the YouTube atheist community, or even just part of the community in general, whatever that means, that nebulous sense of belonging. And I don't think it's what I need. Like, it's just for what I want, I just want people that I can hang out with every day and know that they support and care about me. And that's about good enough for me, because I'm kind of an introvert. So but see, I want to make it more. I want to build a community more.
Sure.
And to me, this is why it is important to be emotional, at least for me, on this topic. And that some people have to be shaken out of their doo-doo ass stance. And while some people try to be calm and, quote unquote, talk about the facts, again, we just don't have the time. You need a community. I need a community. We all need communities. We're social animals by nature. And despite what you guys see on my show, Lina, I'm an introvert too. I stay in this house by my goddamn self. What you see on camera isn't necessarily who I actually, but even that being said, even I need a community. And so this is what I'm saying. I think it's important to be emotional about a very emotional fucking topic. Everyone needs acceptance. Black, white, Asian, Mexican, cis, trans, gay, hetero, it doesn't matter who you are. We crave acceptance.
Yeah,
we should shake shit loose. We should make people uncomfortable because nothing evolves during times of comfort. That's why we were saying before in the pregame show, it's why I confronted that person at work. And if I get written up, then I get fucking written up. But you're just like, oh, I'm totally okay with this transphobic, there's like, then fuck you too.
Right.
Let me speak to the like-minded people as well, because that goes to our opposition. But to tying back into what we were saying about people in the community and what they can do to help out, get connected, get involved in Gather, get involved in our community here, and get who you can to join and help us build this thing because it's really important for us.
Couple quick things. AR dropped the link. I'm not sure if this is it because the one I pulled up is a former trans teen speaks out on lawsuit over gender affirming surgery. So it looks like they were upset about the gender affirming surgery. I'm not sure if that's it. Okay,
I posted one on.
Lina posted one. Okay.
On Uncle Bobby's stream.
All right, so I will. I'll pull that up. Yeah, and maybe I'll play that. We'll play that and review it after you go because I know you got to go in a few. One thing I want to ask about is to talk to us about at least one, if not a couple other things that are important to you that you would like to see us maybe build more community around, or at least just know about you, right? The thing I don't like about these issues is somebody becomes our gender nonconforming friend. And then anytime, these issues come up, boom, we tag them in, right? But then when that's not the issue, we don't tag them in, so we don't know where they stand or on a lot of other issues, and we don't know who they really are. We just know, I need a trans person, boom, there you are. We don't want to do that. So, just tell us. I know a little bit more about you because we've been friends for some time now, but for our audience that's new to you, I don't want them to leave it, that was Lina, she's great if you need somebody to talk about trans issues. What else is important to you? What other stuff are you into? What are your hobbies?
Video games.
All right.
Chess,
so
COD Mobile.
All right, there we go. We go.
Join me play chess online or Call of Duty Mobile or play CS:GO with me or Team Fortress 2 on the computer. And then, besides the fun stuff, I do want to say socialism and class consciousness. It's really important to me. I really care about addressing these issues, and I don't see a way of addressing all of these social issues and climate change and all these things I care about without addressing the elephant in the room, which is this very broken economic system we have. So that's something that I want people to be more educated on. I want people to take more of an interest in and have more economic responsibility, right? Because that's the idea of democracy, is that you have to be responsible, and it's not just about politics. It's about bringing democracy to the workplace. So.
Yeah, and believe it or not, when I think of you, gender type issues are definitely not the first thing that comes to mind. Rather, the first thing that comes to mind is anti-fascism. Like I equate you.
There's
you
that,
are
yeah.
standout, prototypical, the leading the charge on the anti-fascism. And anytime fascism, I'm like, oh, Lina, you need to talk to Lina. And I think a lot of us that are getting to know you that way. So I would encourage. I know Gurr showed up earlier, and some of the other people that have maybe not as familiar with Lina, or maybe not had Lina on your channels to consider. But I think you've been on Gurr's before, right? Maybe you've been on a panel at Gurr's
I think
channel.
I was on there a little bit, or at least in the comments.
Yeah,
and I know there's
yeah.
other strong voices pushing for class consciousness in our community. Leo is doing great work right now.
Yeah. So I hope
sure there's
more
others.
people interview you. Talk a little bit about what your goals are. I know you said you've been wrestling, struggling a little bit to get going with your content, but what would you like to do, or you know what I mean? Like, what are you interested in? What have you been thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, the struggle for me is like producing content. I just don't think I have the time or energy to edit content and do that sort of thing.
Sure.
But as far as getting on panels and having good conversations with people, that's something I'm really interested in. And apparently it's something that at least some of us in our community enjoy hearing. So I appreciate all the support, guys.
Yeah, definitely. I really like lives, because you don't have to do any editing. I think that's the benefit for a lot of people of lives. There's no editing and uploading and all that stuff. But certainly, we really appreciate your voice on all these discussions, and I think you can do more of those. And you can always get people's permission to re-upload your appearances. That way, even like, let's say before you get going actively.
Full permission for anyone who's listening.
Yeah. But then you could have a channel, right? And let's say you're not actively producing content, but if people gave you permission, you could sort of re-upload appearances you do there. And then when you start doing content, people are like, oh, we know who Lina is because there's already stuff here. Just something to throw at you.
Yeah, I think making my own channel is definitely in the future. Just it's gonna be a hurdle to get over. But we'll get there.
So, just so
Anyways,
you know,
I gotta get going.
Yeah,
guys.
I was gonna say, I know you gotta go to work. We will be doing stuff later. Please join us when you get home from work. And I think actually the conversation will be continuing. And I'm hoping, Lina, you'll join us tonight for our movie night and gather. And we'll be able to chat with you then.
I absolutely love meeting you.
I love you guys so much. Thank you.
I'm sure this will not be your last appearance on the Blackout, but we really appreciate having you.
I hope not.
We'll see you soon. Have a great day at work.
Thanks.
See ya.
All right. So
that was cool.
Yeah, that was cool. That was fun. Cool. And Uncle Bobby's, you've only got about 20, 30 minutes yourself. I know you got to go too. But yeah, just let's just give our reflections on this experience and talk a little bit about maybe some things you take away from this. And before we do that, I just want to thank you because I really do think you've helped us. First off, we love your content, right? People need their Uncle Bobby. First off, we live in a content desert. People don't speak about this enough. But we live in a kind of niche where we don't have a lot of daily uploaders. Now, I try to do daily lives. You do more or less daily uploads, but, most days of the week. I know sometimes you're not feeling well or traveling. But I don't think enough is said to say that we really appreciate that. I have the thing of being United States champion, that, workhorse mentality. And I think people really benefit from that because as much as they love some of their other favorite YouTubers, they only drop, once or twice a week. Now they drop some fire, that's cool, but it's people watch it and then you don't hear from them. So we really do feel like we need our Uncle Bobby, but you're also so entertaining that it's very different than all the other channels because typically we're getting some breakdown and it sucks too because a lot of these channels are preaching to the choir. Right? If somebody drops a video on 5 things atheists can't respond to, well, we already know what the apologist is going to say, and we already know what the counter-apologist is going to say. Right? So there's very few channels that are, bringing something to you that you really need to hear, especially if you've kind of been around for a while. But I think your stuff is so entertaining that it has that added value of we don't even care what it is. We just want to check it out. But you've focused in on this thing, right? You've been hammering on this, right? The Christian view of our queer fam, the Christian view of trans, the political rights view of trans. So I want to thank you for, keeping it sort of at like the forefront of our mind, and I'm sure the community appreciates that as well. So yeah, what do you think? Because part of what I want to do is have you join me to talk to more of the people in our community, because we don't have enough of that opportunity. But yeah, what are you thinking after all this?
Well, one, I love listening to what she had to say. I mean, that is fresh from the horse's mouth.
Right.
I can wax, you can wax, but someone who's actually walking the walk, that's who needs the microphone.
Right.
And in terms of my own content, my thing is, again, attitude reflects leadership. And especially like when I think about what's going on in Texas, the head coach of Texas, Greg Abbott, has literally made it open season on trans people. And so you have to speak out, or at least I have to speak out about this.
Right.
Because again, I would love to live in a world where you're just like, hi, Lina, bam, period, end of story. It's kind of like, football. Black quarterbacks have made it when we simply say that's a quarterback instead of that was a really good black quarterback. Right? I want to get to a point to where we say Lina, Steven, Chad, Joanne, without saying, was that really a guy? Was that really a guy? No, you're just like, that's who that person I said Chad, period, end of story. And so, I mean, we have to wax on this as much as we don't want to.
Right.
But it is a forefront.
Yeah.
I mean, did you see Trump's latest announcement that if he's elected president, all 50 states will now have to follow Texas, and that it's now a crime to render gender-affirming care. And he used all the buzzwords, mutilation, castration, all this crap. And we sit here and we wonder why trans people are pissing in a box fan.
Right.
So, I mean, we have to talk about this crap.
So another thing I wanted to mention real quick that I think is important, and we briefly mentioned this because we were having a bit of a conversation with Lina last night, and Nitty was here for that, I believe, is I'm afraid of who's not trans. And I never realized that before we started having this conversation yesterday. But one of the things Lina mentioned is the lack of access to healthcare. Be that someone trying to transition and needing access to proper medical care and support, whether that's social workers or a social support system or psychiatric services, whatever it is, right? And then a lot of it is just a culture of social pressure, right? So what we're focusing on so much is our opposition to people who are actively transitioning or who have already transitioned. What we're overlooking is all the people who may be best served by transitioning, but are not. And I never thought about that before. When I thought about it, it scares me, right? Because, it's like any of us. Imagine not feeling like you can even begin that process or take the steps you need to take, right? And so I mean that very seriously. I'm afraid, and it's a new thing for me to be concerned about, who actually is essentially trans but lacks either the support or they're too fearful or whatever the case might be, and so they're not transitioning because of everything that's going on. That's 100% frightening. The other thing is the well poisoning. So we'll talk about this a little bit more with Stephanie later on Hot Program, but a lot of times people talk about trans issues. We talk about the sports. Well, I don't want some dude in the pool setting the record, beating all the girls. Or we talk about, I don't want the teachers transing the kids. And what happens is, my immediate response is jumping like, oh, that's not what's happening. And shut up about that. This is ridiculous, right? And I know we have a lot of that response, but the truth is, wait a second. We actually do need to talk about trans in sports. because sports is an incredibly important part of a young person's development for many people.
Sure.
Wait, we do need to talk about how trans is being handled in the classroom and in the curriculum, because these are our young folks, and they need to learn, you know, it's okay to be who they are, and everybody else needs to get on board with who they are. And so sometimes the right and the anti-queer people are picking the narratives, usually misrepresenting it. And then those of us who are even trying to do the right thing, we want to take those things off the table because we know they're using it as a distraction, right? But then that limits our allyship, because we actually need to keep those goddamn things on the table for our community. And the last couple of days have allowed me to really think more thoroughly about that. And then Nitty's with us, and Nitty has an interesting story that I want you to hear for a little bit before you go. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, my thing is, I agree. We need to talk about all of it.
Right.
We do. Now, when we talk about sports, yes, let's have the conversation. And especially the way we talk at each other nowadays, again, everything is either all the way 100, everything's all the way 0. We can sit here and we can talk about the Leah Thomases, the swimmer who shattered records and all that other stuff. You're right. Let's talk about it. But first and foremost, let's not bash Leah Thomas.
Right.
She followed the rules that were set forth. Period in the story. So she's not the demon. But for every Leah Thomas, and that's what they focus on. Right. What you don't know are all the trans people who have, again, go look it up, because I have. When we talk about like NCAA sports, before Leah Thomas, I think there were like 2 people who made the transition that medal, that placed, like in track and field. One was the second, and the other one was the third. So this trans dominant, there's no such thing.
Right.
There's no such thing.
Right.
Fallon Fox. Let's talk about Fallon Fox. Right? You just don't want some man beating up a girl. Shut the fuck up. I've done shows on this. Leah Thomas got her opponent in the monkey clinch. And if you know Muay Thai, it is a very dominant. If I can monkey clinch the back of your head, I've got you.
Yeah.
I can make
straight
you
to the
dance,
knees, and then straight to the knees.
Right. Now, if I pull your head down, as I pull your head down and my knee goes up, it's the equivalent of me taking a shovel and hitting you in the face. Bundy, you can do that to me. I can do that to you. I can teach 2 girls to do that to each. It wasn't that Fallon was trans. That is a devastating technique. Now, again, Fallon Fox was at best a mid-level fighter, but they're going to sit there and they're going to talk about that one time that she cracked someone's skull. I could do that to you. You could do that to me. And so let's have the discussion without demonizing the trans people who followed the rules that were put forth.
That's how Vanderlei Silva ended people in the Pride days.
So I almost forgot what you asked me,
but no, we're just mentioning how we need to have these conversations, and we allow the distractions to tell us not to,
without demonizing the trans people.
100%.
And the first thing that I thought of, as you told me what we're going to talk about, was Jessica Yaniv. You know who that is?
No.
Jessica Yaniv, I'm not going to question the authenticity of her claims. Jessica is a trans woman. Now, in my opinion, she's a predator. She takes countless pictures, or she used to before she got busted, in the women's bathroom. And, it's kind of like her, selfie time, and there are women and little girls in the background. Now, the first time you do it, hey, Jessica, bad form. But she kept doing it. Then she would live tweet, oh, there's a 13-year-old girl. I wonder if I can see her tampon string. Oh, that looks like a 15-year-old girl. Should I help her with how to put in a tampon? And then she started inviting people, and by people, I mean little girls, to pool parties and say, and it wasn't mandatory, but it was strongly suggested, why don't we all swim topless? Okay.
Okay.
Jessica Yaniv, in my opinion, is a predator. Now, she's a predator because she's a predator, not because she's transgender.
Right.
But when she was the it topic, the hardcore transphobes love to bring up Jessica Yaniv. What they didn't bring up was the fact that you want to know why you didn't know the person in the stall was trans? Because the person in the stall next to you that was trans didn't know you were cis. Because they weren't hey, are you in there? Hey, I'm a cisgender woman and I'm taking a piss in the bathroom. No, they took a piss, they washed their hands, and they walked out.
Right.
And so it's like, we need to have this conversation. Just like in the 60s and the 50s, we had the conversation about black people.
Absolutely.
Just so you know, we're human. You remember when Mr. Rogers put his feet in a pool with the black mailman?
No.
Because it was a very famous episode of Mr. Rogers, which sounds stupid in 2023, but he rolled his pants up and he sat in a kiddie pool with his feet in, and then the black mailman did the exact same, and he had a full-blown conversation. Because kind of the once then thought was, if you're in the if you're in the pool with black people.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, black people in the pool. Yeah, the black is going to rub off into the water.
Exactly. Mr. Rogers, he never even really brought up what he was doing. He just sat there and he's like, isn't this a nice day? The water, bam. And like Lina was talking about, the civil rights movement and the trans, they are the
hand
same.
in hand. Absolutely.
Yeah, we need to we do need to politicize it. We do need to talk about it. You've already taken a piss, a shit, and you'll never guess what, everybody. If you have showered in a public facility, like a gym, you have showered next to someone who is trans. They just didn't advertise it, just like you don't advertise.
Right,
like
you were in your shower stall, they were in theirs,
right.
and life goes on.
We need to talk about this, because if we don't, the voices that we hear will be the Greg Abbotts.
Absolutely. Nitty.
Right? Go ahead.
Can we get Nitty in here for a little bit? Nitty.
Absolutely.
So Nitty is another content creator in our community. One of the real voices that we love to hear from. And I think they're a big fan. But Nitty's jumped in on this recently. And Nitty, I didn't know your story, so I don't want to tell it. Give Uncle Bobby the sort of the short version, and let's jump into it, because I think for a lot of us, this is new information about you for us, and we're all trying to take it into. Go ahead.
All right, so here goes. So when I was 3 years old, I looked into my parents' closet. And I saw wigs. And I told my mom, look, it's daddy's hair. And my mom said, what is going on here? And I repressed that memory. And I'll tell you why later. When I was 8 years old, I was in my father's electrical truck work van, waiting for him to finish up something he was doing on the job. And he used to collect comic books, and he'd bring them home in brown paper bags and whatnot. And I saw a rather thick brown paper bag underneath his driver's seat. And I'm like, ooh, comic books. They ain't no comic books. It was trans porn, and a lot of it.
Wow.
And I was very confused, because in my house, when I was 8, we didn't talk about sex ever. Not in school, not at home. Nobody talked about sex with me, anything of that kind, right? Not even about my own private parts. Just don't take your dick out in public. That was about it. That's the end of the conversation. Right? So, but coming from complete non-exposure to full exposure to images and people who looked like that was traumatic, but it didn't need to be, right? It didn't need to be. Was it appropriate for me to see? Of course not. But it didn't need to be traumatic, right? Fast forward, I'm like 12 years old, And my biological father decides, I'm going to pierce my ears and wear diamond studded and dangly earrings every once in a while. And this is in like the late 90s when like as a typical cis hetero male, you could have your ears pierced, but it was, you know, a little odd in like more conservative, like small town America, right? And my biological father insisted that they drive me to school every day. And I was like 5th, 6th grade. And I was getting made fun of for that. But then people started to key on their appearance. And it was causing me a lot of social anxiety and stress because once they saw my biological father's appearance, the accusation started to fly. You're from a queer-ass family.
Oh, Jesus.
You're a little faggot like your dad. And I was
really
breaking down.
To you,
to me,
that's how insensitive we were, bro. We had no clue. I'm so sorry you went through that, Nitty. Go ahead.
Oh, it got worse. So, not long after that, I had to deal with a bully at school who followed me down the hallway and said, I bet you like dildos up your ass like your femme dad. I bet you want to take it in the butt all night long. You fucking queer. You're going to be gay or off the planet like your dad. Like, just horrible. Like, people wouldn't befriend me. I was going through this is fucking middle school. I was trying to make it through middle school.
Jesus, dude. Jesus.
And, imagine now we talk about in our space, right? The harm that transphobia does to a trans person. But we don't think what transphobia can do to the families of the trans people, right? Because children with bigotry in their heads are verbal weapons. They are loaded weapons ready to fire at whoever aligns with who they're bigoted to. And they don't know any fucking better. Because to you, to them, you're just part of that group. You're part of that family. You might even, they could just project that fear onto the children, onto the brothers, the sisters, and it's completely unwarranted, but they're a little verbal loaded gun walking around with their bigotry. And so, it's a pretty conservative Catholic aligning neighborhood, but there were these, very vocal, very aggressive, anti-gay, anti-trans, pretty much non-hetero bigots at my school. And they didn't want to give me the light of day after they figured out that got a rise out of me. That would make me cry. That would make me, want to self-harm even.
Jesus.
And I got to a point where it was hurting me so much emotionally that I started failing classes that I had no business failing because I was a model student. I started getting C's and D's because I didn't want to go to fucking school. I didn't want to wake up in the morning. I remember walking home from school when my parents let me walk home from school, cursing out the God I barely didn't even believe in because I don't want to be on this earth if my social life is going to be this for the rest of my life because of something I can't even control, right? This isn't my sex. This isn't my appearance at all. I'm being targeted because someone I'm related to is queer.
And this is the, I can't, because you were dealing with your peers being terrible to you. And so right. In a way, we all know what that pressure feels like. And so it's understandable for you to resent the reason that you're in the situation, which happens to be your father. Right.
Right.
And that to me is, and that's why I thought your story was so powerful because number one, we don't hear enough from the trans voices and queer community in our own lives. A lot of times we don't have them. I can think of my one gay cousin, right? But aside from that, I had the one gay kid in my high school, right? So openly at least, right? So I've had limited exposure, right? And I'm kind of trying to correct for that. At the same time, you know, that gives us such a limited perspective. And then when we start thinking, we're only thinking about all the unfortunate things that it goes on with that person. And we're not really seeing that when you have this cultural problem, this bigoted culture of ours, it hurts everybody. And I didn't realize how much, it becomes a traumatic experience for you. Just having a trans family member. Go ahead, continue. I just wanted to say that.
Well, you know what happens when you are the target of bigotry? You want to become a bigot too. And that's exactly what I did. Because what was the after school programming at the time that this is all going on? Jerry fucking Springer. So when my biological father sat me down and said, look, I'm going to tell you why I wear earrings. I'm a cross-dresser. And that's where they felt comfortable expressing themselves at that time. There's a lot more to that with their psychology and where they actually were. But to try and go over easy with me as a 12-year-old surrounded by bigots, it's like, I'm a cross-dresser. Guess what my response to that was? I tried to kick his ass.
Jesus Christ.
All the love was gone because all the hatred had to go somewhere, right? I just straight up tried to kick his ass in the middle of the living room, and my mother dragged me off of him, and I tried to throw a chair at him.
Like physically?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because my only response to confronting sexual information that I was taught by TV in our culture was violence. Go get violent, right?
Yeah, and you're trying to, and literally you're trying to fuck. Yeah, and you know this. You already know this, but because the kids are confronting you with it, you're living in some state of denial, right? Because you've got to say whatever's going on, I don't deserve this. And in some sense, when he comes out and says this is what's happening, even if he tries to soften it to you, he's now making it so real, right? You can't. Now you really are confronting because he's just said it. He's just said the thing. And that just, wow, that's tough, man.
It brought it all straight to the forefront. But my mom, seeing that response, thought that my biological father had abused me. And that's why I responded that way. So you want to know what happened next?
Yeah.
We moved out that night. That night we went to a safe house because my mom didn't know what was going on. She didn't know that I'd been the targeting of so much bullying and hatred, that I had this stewing up inside me. She thought that I had an abuse response. So she was like, I'm ready to divorce this guy. I'm done. I'm out of here. Wow. And I lost all what little friendships I had. And I got put into a new school district. Lived alone with my mom for about a year or so, but until we couldn't financially make it on our own. And during that time, my biological father started taking hormones at the direction of their doctor.
Sure.
Well, my biological mother has the right to consent to being married to someone who is completely male or completely female or somewhere in between.
Right.
That's their adult right. And as my biological father started to take hormones and transition, she'd continue my vitriol for my biological father's identity by saying things like, I didn't marry no fucking woman. So they need to stop taking these hormones or we're all done here. We're going to kick you up, kick them out of the house. And eventually that's what it came to. She kicked my biological father out of the house after a year and a half, when really this person needs care, acceptance, community, love, understanding, patience. Sure, you don't have to be married. You don't have to fuck. Fine. But you don't have to ruin everyone's life in the process either way.
Right.
And I'm not saying that my biological father was a saint, because while we were gone, motherfucker took out another mortgage on our house and ran us bankrupt.
Damn.
So
Yeah, yeah.
My biological father, by the time I was 17, I was about to be homeless from all of this mess. Like
Wow.
the bank showed up and said, "You have 6 months. If you don't get out of this house, we're pulling you out of this house with the police."
Do you have a relationship with them now?
I do. It's not great, but it's a relationship. We'll call it that.
Sure.
And when so I went off to college with all this like bitterness and hatred, right? And it all got blended in to me saying things to myself like, my life was so hard because my biological father is trans. And that's not even close. That's not even, nope. No. There's a lot going on there that is compounded by the transness, right?
Yeah,
it's
sure, but
compounded by how it had to go about.
I don't know.
right?
I think this is all true, right? I don't think it's exclusive. Right.
Yeah.
I think it's all of the. I think it's bigger than you, and it's not about you because there's this this culture war going on that I think Lina spoke so well to. Look, if a genocide of our queer community happens, we will not be able to say the writing wasn't on the wall, right? But at the same time, your life was hard because your biological father was trans, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't. That's
In
not
part,
you saying doesn't make you an asshole. It's a reflection of the consequences of this cultural problem we have, and it did make your life harder. There's no doubt about it. It made your life harder in the same way being the only black kid made my life harder. Once it was something people noticed and I couldn't change, it was a constant source of daily frustration because I was treated differently than everybody else. And that did happen to you. And you should, I hope you allow yourself to feel that. Go ahead, Uncle Bobby.
Well, yeah, I gotta roll out.
You gotta roll through it. I know that. Yeah.
That was nitty holy shit. And
it didn't get any better when I became a Christian. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, I got choked up listening to what Lina said, and I was sitting over here trying to fight back tears listening to that goddamn story. But I'm going to tell you something. You need a bigger microphone. You do, because when I sit here and I think about the shit that I've said, I mean, people need to hear that story 100 times a day, because when I sit here and I say that the rate of self-harm is higher in the trans community, and then when you sit here and you listen to your story, you're just like, that's the fucking reason why. And your response to your pops, again, this is so layered. This isn't just stop being trans or stop being depressed or just believing in a God. This is so fucking layered that by the time you got to the point where you're throwing a chair at your dad, we need to peel back 194 layers of this rotten onion. I mean, this is not something that's going to be solved in a 2-hour fucking podcast or YouTube show.
No.
But that was an amazing fucking story, and congrats to you for standing, for being on this side, for having even some semblance of a relationship with your pops, biological father. I mean, holy shit. People need to hear this story every day. Because the people with the bigger microphones are the Foxes, or the Matt Walshes, or the Ben Shapiros. Trans people are fucked up. Blah, 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 blah. And then you sit here and he's like, here's a dude who had that story. And again, I'm so fucking scrambled. I'm going to tell you something, dude. You did not throw a chair at your biological father. That was not you, in my opinion. That was the layers of society that taught you that is how you handle someone in transition. You may have been the bullet, but the gun and the gunpowder was everyone else. I mean, holy shit. My hat's off to you, honestly and truly, for having that story, that experience. and to be able to recognize, because I mean, I was literally sitting here trying not to cry. That was one hell of a story, and I only heard 10 minutes of it. So hats off,
Uncle Bobby.
hats off, man. That was fucking amazing.
And
you are amazing.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Nitty, and I think Nitty's just kind of getting into letting us in on this part of his life. So the link's in the description. Please subscribe to Nitty's channel, and yeah, we'll have to get you and Uncle Bobby linked up again and chat some more. Uncle Bobby, I know you got to go. Thanks so much as always for joining us.
Yeah, I'm gonna listen to more of this.
Yeah,
Nitty,
appreciate you.
You're gonna keep talking. I'm gonna be in the car.
Hell yeah, man.
Dude, you need a bigger microphone.
Yeah.
That was an amazing story of emotional strength. And it's not going to help, but please do not beat yourself up. That was not you throwing the chair. That was not you. That is what society told you to fucking do, because we're so fucked up on anything that's not quote unquote normal, that we've taught ourselves the way to handle that is to fuck them up.
Yeah.
And so, dude, salute. Nothing but respect, nothing but love, my man. I love the shit out of you. That was fucking amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Uncle Bobby. We really appreciate it.
I'm gonna listen to you guys in the car. You guys take it easy.
Appreciate it. All right, gang. So here's what's going on. We're gonna turn off Uncle Bobby's channels. That's the Robert Reed account on Twitter and the Gin and Truth channel on YouTube. We'll keep the discussion going on Pocket Locker 86. So if you're on YouTube or Twitter, wherever you're at, you can head over to the Pocket Locker 86 channel, and we'll keep this conversation going here in Gather with Nitty, and James is here. Looking forward to hear from James. And if anybody else wants to call in, now's the time to do so. The link is in the description. So yeah, go ahead if you want to chat with us, and then at 3:30 we will end the stream, and we will then switch over. You can stay at Pocket Locker 86, and we'll do Hot Program with my one black friend. But we will end the stream and start a new stream. That way they're separate shows. And at 3:30, our guest will be Stephanie Helms. So we're going to continue our hashtag trans is beautiful, hashtag trans out afternoon. And then we'll take a little bit of a break. I'll stream church with my club on GTA, but that'll only be in the cafe here in Gather. And then tonight, once that's done, we're going to have a movie night. So figure probably, let's figure probably 9 o'clock. We'll get the movie started, and we'll have our sort of trans celebration movie night. And yeah, so we're just trying to make it a whole day. So yeah, I'm going to end the stream. If you are on the Robert Reed channel or Gin and Truth on YouTube, if you want to keep the conversation going and join us for the rest of the events, feel free to head over to the Pocket Locker 86 channel. Also, the link to the cafe, if you'd like to join us and gather, is in the description, even if you decide to join us later on tonight. So thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next week on the Blackout.
Jay,
all
did
right,
you want me to?
We're good to go.
Are you guys still live?
Yeah, we're still live.
Pocket.
We're still live. We're just I just took us off of Uncle Bobby's channels so that
gotcha.
so that since he's not here anymore. Yeah, so James, let's go. We're still live. We've still got the Pocket Locker 86 gang with us. So yeah, let's go.
Couple things real quick. I can't stay too long.
Sure.
At 3:30, when you're transitioning over to the Hot Program, unfortunately, I'd made a prior commitment to a different channel.
Oh, okay.
So I'll have to catch you guys and rerun on that one.
Sure.
Which is a shame because he is one of my favorite people.
Well, what are you doing?
I'll be over at the Afro Atheists channel, and there's some Christian guy that she wants me to help hash it
to?
out. No, not talk to, but talk about, like, we're going to review some of his nonsense, and and talk about, like, where we think he went off the rails, and what lessons we can learn from that.
Okay.
But I don't want to like pull us away from the topic here. I just want to let you know that I can't stay too long. I've got to get ready for a different show, and I got some other stuff to do. Nitty, I didn't catch the whole thing. I'm going to go back and listen to the whole thing when I get a chance to. What I heard was obviously powerful, and it was clearly relevant to something I just got done saying on my channel about how I had to forgive myself, and how we get people like Ray Comfort, and the game he runs, right? Where he goes onto the college campus, he picks out freshmen, vulnerable people, and he does this game where he wants to let them know that any mistake they've ever made has stained them for life, for eternity. And they are, and so they will always be the thief and the liar and the adulterer and whatever else, right?
He'll say, so you are a thief, a liar, an adulterer, rather than you stole, you lied, you fucked, whatever, right?
So he creates the problem that he then presents to solve, right? So he creates this artificial narrative where you always forever will be defined by the mistakes you've made in the past. So it's who you are and who you'll always be. But now the creator of the universe is willing to forgive you and wash you clean, right? So that he creates a false narrative that burdens you unnecessarily and unreasonably. And then he offers a religious pretense for how to cleanse and forgive yourself for that. And as a way to, but it's only available through his religion. So now you have to join, right? It's a shameless gimmick that he should I don't even think it should be legal. Honestly, it's so horrific. But it speaks to what Nitty was saying, and it speaks to what I mentioned briefly on my own channel. I had to forgive myself for the mistakes I made in the past, and I earned that forgiveness. I earned that clean slate by doing the hard work that of all the growth, of the personal inventory that I had to take, and all the learning I had to do, and all the accountability I had to subject myself to, and I even had to go to the people that I was unfair to and make myself available to have those conversations, right? At least the people that are still alive and around to have those conversations with. And my dad passed Christmas before last, so now I can't go back and have those conversations with him. But I can still forgive myself for the mistakes I made in the past because I did the work and became this other person, right? And I had been, the person I used to be was weaponized by religion, weaponized by culture, weaponized by bad parents who were clueless about life and didn't prepare me for the reality of it, right? And I did the work to break the cycle, to become the better person. I earned that forgiveness of myself, right? And so, yeah, like what Uncle Bobby was saying, that's not who you are now. It's who you were then because of the way that other people weaponized your headspace and weaponized situations. And you grew past that. You did the work. And think about all the people in this world who won't do the work. They won't be that courageous to take that personal inventory. They won't put in the work of growing and understanding themselves in the context of where they've been and who they want to be. You did the work. You owned it. You took responsibility for it. And it's complicated, right? It's not a one simple thing equation, right? It's layers. It's a rotten onion with layers. And each of those layers have to be examined on their own merits and understand how they connect. And it's not a simple process. I think you need to write a book. I think that Uncle Bobby's 100% right, that people need to hear it. And it would be incredibly valuable. And I think that could be your bigger microphone. So, and that's
and it speaks to the issue. It speaks to how it affects all of us. I like to say this about the conversation around abortion. Listen, it's a women's issue. Period. End of story. Okay? It's about women's bodies or pregnant people's bodies. Period. End of story. Okay? But it's also really important to remember that when they take our reproductive rights away, they take all of our reproductive rights away. And what I mean by that is, and I always use this hypothetical, it's very serious. A woman cannot come to me and say, hey, Jay, I know, the condom broke, or we had a bit of an incident and I was taking the pill, but guess what? It's that off chance and we got pregnant and, I'm with you. We don't really want to have a baby right now, but hey, Jay, abortion's legal, so I can't do it. And I'll be like, oh, baby, yeah, I get it, but don't worry, I got us, because women can't have abortions. But I'm a man, so I'm just going to go down to the abortion clinic and get an abortion for us, right? It doesn't work that way. So they're coming for all of our reproductive rights. When women can't get abortions, guess what? None of us can get abortions.
Well,
right?
Jay, the Catholic channels are like, do condoms next. I'm serious.
Yes.
The Catholic channels on YouTube are saying,
do condoms next.
Oh,
yeah, let's go.
We got abortion done.
Right.
All right.
Let's keep going. Next town, next one down.
And,
but just
quickly,
vasectomies next.
Yeah. So are certain people in the Supreme Court. Certain
Absolutely.
Justices in the Supreme Court are talking about that too. Let's do condoms next.
Let's do condoms. Let's do interracial marriage, wherever they might go with it. But the thing I just wanted to quickly mention is, like, similar to that, how they came for all of us. I think part of what I'm so glad you brought to this conversation today, because I was trying to do voices that can speak from their lived experience, right? And that is putting the spotlight on our trans and non-gender conforming family members, right? But it's also to say, let's look at the bigger picture of who else has been affected by it. And it's the same thing. When you go after trans people, when you go after the queer community at all, you are in a sense coming after all of us, because you're coming after our friends and family. And your experience is, I think closer to that stove than most of us feel. And you're able to speak directly to the damage to others, right? The secondhand damage, if you will. And I do think that's the story that needs to be told, because even when we look at the normalization of, other portions of the queer community, lesbian, gay, like even the civil rights movement or interracial marriage, so many of these things happened when people started to realize it affected people they knew, or it was affected their own family. They had a gay son, they had a gay coworker that they loved, or something like that. And so we need to hear those stories. And I hate to say it, but it's because those stories are harder to ignore, because people won't have as much prejudice against you as they do the LGBT people themselves, right? And so you can sometimes speak to people who won't be able to hear them when you're saying, no, it's not their story. This is my story.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, James. Or Nitty.
No, Nitty, go ahead first, and then I'll follow.
Yeah, I really like that point, and it's really important for people to see that the human mind and character development, it should never be black and white, binary thinking, and stereotypes, because once you start doing that, what do you do when you become your own other? When you start falling off your own binaries, your own black and white definitions, you fucking lose your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to hurt yourself and everyone else around you because you don't know what to do. You don't know what your place is in the world, because you're being told everything's black and white. You're either this or you're that. You're this or you're that.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of thinking about my sexuality and personal identity, which I will just say right now, I'm a heterosexual male presenting person. There you go. But that didn't come without a lot of personal introspection throughout my young years, because I didn't have a safe place because of my biological father. I didn't have a safe place or people to discuss that with. To be like, hey, maybe would it be okay if I'm not sure that I'm entirely male? I can't open my mouth and have that conversation with my mom. Why? Because women don't marry women, right? Real women don't marry women, right?
Right. Yeah.
You know, it takes a marriage. A marriage is made of a real man and a real woman. So, you know, I didn't have a time and a place to have that kind of discussion. Hold on a second.
Yeah. Nitty's being
My
called for.
son's
Go ahead, James. You can get in here.
So what Nitty is saying is directly relevant to what I wanted to say, and I knew that that's where he was going to go, and I wanted to segue away, from what he was saying.
Sure.
It's relevant, directly relevant to what Stephanie Helm started to address last night. This is the ironic thing about it, catch-22, because yes, we want to recognize that trans is a thing and that the struggle is real, and that progress needs to be made, and Stephanie recognizes that, but at the same time, it's a catch-22 because we also need to be able to move past it at some point, because ironically the conservatives are going to get their way in the end, but not in the way that they think. They want us to quit discussing trans, and so do I, but for a different reason. The same reason that Stephanie Helms wants us to quit discussing trans at some point, because right now we have to discuss it because it's a sociological phenomenon and a moral issue, and we need to recognize these people as real people, right? And fully in every way. But at the same time, we need to get to the point where we recognize that trans people aren't a different kind of person, right? They're not some special category of human experience or phenomenon, right? That they're not. They're us. We're all part of this big, sloppy, messy, but beautiful continuum of varied experiences and perceptions. Now, I myself, like the way that I feel about my own identity in terms of sexuality, varies. It flows, it ebbs and it flows. So at certain times, in the course of an hour or a day or a week or a year or a decade, the interests that I have or the feelings that I have relevant to my sexuality change. Certain things are a turn on at some times that are absolutely not a turn on at all at other times, right? Or I'm attracted to certain qualities in certain people at certain times that maybe I'm not always in a groove with, right? In the meantime, there's this list of people of stereotypes that are identified in society as male traits versus female traits. And at the heart of it, that's the problem, right? Because if you look at that list of traits, these two are an ebb and a flow and a mix and a match kind of a thing, where the list of traits that are on male traits, I have those. The list of traits that are considered female traits, I have those too, right? And so because society says this is what it means to be a man, and over here is a list of what it means to be feminine or a woman, that's what defines your character within the context of the story of who society is or what society is, right? And that's the bullshit, because it's not true. If I happen to be a very nurturing, compassionate person, that is not a feminine trait. If I happen to be a natural leader and confident and ready to fight if somebody steps into my space, that is not a masculine trait. These are human traits. We need to get past the idea that this list of characteristics are male and these ones are female, and that there's these molds that we're supposed to identify with and conform to, because that's the bullshit, right? And so trans is a thing in terms of identity and in terms of relationship paradigms, but this is an emergent idea that is in response to gender stereotypes that are bullshit. And so once humanity grows past the gender stereotypes, past the idea that this is what it means to be a man and this is what it means to be a woman, once we grow past that, then we'll no longer be talking about trans, because we'll no longer be responding to the bullshit that we've grown past, because trans is just a response to these ideas. They are not a different kind of person. They are us. They are, and we aren't a one static idea or one static, because the traits that I have, like sometimes I'm very confident, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm aggressive, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm compassionate, sometimes I'm not. Right? And so it's an ebb and a flow in a very liquid, very meandering kind of a thing. And so when we notice that, we'll notice that there's not this division. Trans people are not a different kind of person, right? They're just us, right? And I mean, even hormone levels, and Stephanie Helms mentioned that the other night. Hormone levels are very impactful. They are almost entirely decisive about how we feel in terms of our sexual interests and our romantic attractions and things like that. They generate a certain state of attraction and repulsion, and
there's basically nothing we can do about it.
Right, nothing we can do about it
in a lot of cases.
And they change based on diet and exercise,
throughout your life,
and age, and cultural influences and interpersonal dynamics. They change constantly. They are not one static thing, and it's a mix and match thing as well. And so, if we can just recognize that these stereotypes are bullshit, that this list of what it means to be a man versus a woman is bullshit, and then even recognize that our physiology relevant to our sexuality is also an ever-changing and complex thing, we recognize that historically we've been having the wrong conversations, right? That we've been humoring these ideas, these social constructs as absolutes or objective truths when they are not. And that is at the heart, I think, of the problem. So, if we're going to really think about it, we are all trans. All of us are trans. All of us are.
That's an uncomfortable truth that many Christians who ever stumble upon this stream will not want to face. And I do want to speak to that before Stephanie gets on, James, if you don't mind. Because that's another very important part of my story and my experience that I didn't want to forget about. And I hear you about the necessity of like moving the conversation onward from is this a binary or not? Well, obviously not, but a lot of people are stuck thinking that. And here's why they're stuck thinking that. Because they desperately want their God to exist, for their relationship to him to be real. And this is one of those things that will introduce a great amount of cognitive dissonance for the person who really starts looking at the data, really starts trying to understand and have real empathy and respect for other humans. Once a Christian tries to cross the threshold of having real empathy and respect for the LGBTQ community, and I'm not talking like, oh yeah, I buy, the queer club on campus, Panera gift cards, and just to show them that we have Christian love for them. Fuck that. No, that's not allyship. That's not real love. Real love is, hey, I don't agree with what my God says about you. I think you're valuable. I think you're worthy of my respect and friendship. I don't want to see you harmed. I have reservations about what people tell me God says about you. Once a Christian starts crossing that threshold, starts looking into the neuroscience, the psychology, and seeing that the binary is bullshit. He created us male and female. He created us with this black and white answer, seeing that that's full of shit. It's all going to start breaking down. Humans aren't just these simple taxonomic things that I can organize conveniently. When I look at someone, it's not going to be so easy. Damn it. And you know what? My relationship to my biological father was in part this, because at first I was told that I needed to be supreme at forgiving my biological father for their condition, for the things that were part of my story where they hurt me and wronged me, right? The whole bankruptcy thing, the lying thing, the not communicating, the not giving me a safe space to understand their sexuality or mine. All that needed to be forgiven. But you know what didn't need to be forgiven? In my eyes? Any of my reactions to it. Any of my bigotry to it. Any of my apprehension to their sense of self. I didn't have to forgive myself for how I perceived them at all. Because my God believed that that person has a quality and a lifestyle, as the Christians like to say. They're living a lifestyle of sin. So you're justified in being angry that they are trans. You're justified in being angry that they don't accept their born personhood, because God hates it too. Because God hates sin, then God hates the way that this person lives. You're justified. You don't need forgiveness for being a bigot, for having this hate for this part of this person, this human. No, you don't need forgiveness of that, because this is how God feels. Because he made it black and white. What's so hard for people to understand? Right? It's male and female. It's not Adam, Eve, and RuPaul.
And they're still on that.
Yeah.
It's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve or whatever.
Right.
It's really unfortunate. This is all, it's really tragic, fellas.
And then going on from there, like, so at first, when I first became a Christian, I was justified in being Jehovah's Witness level of shunning to this person, because I don't know when their transness could be a harm or negative influence to my family, or maybe these kids that I want to have someday, or my spiritual community. I can't take a stand for their rights to use bathrooms or to present how they wish to present. I can't do that because my God doesn't believe that those are acceptable behaviors. So I'm justified in shunning this person, relinquishing this person from community with their biological son. Right. With getting the chance to be at my wedding. My biological father was not invited to my wedding. I want that to sink in.
You know, that's a thing, though, that the Christian narrative does. So I was originally invited to my mother's wedding, and I think she uninvited me, like called me so we could talk about how she wasn't going to, you know, provision for me to get there. When she did some like huge destination thing and, let's just say made sure plenty of other people got there. So she basically uninvited me, I think because at the time I was poly and I had 2 girlfriends and wasn't going to be the type of idiot that brought one of them and not the other. It's crazy. But yeah, I had the same thing. And the funny thing about it in my mom's case, bro, was that was one of her greatest wounds in her life. Was she got remarried and her grandparents didn't come, when she married her second husband. She married my stepdad because, they don't believe in divorce. Mm-hmm. So they didn't come to the wedding. And she it took her forever to forgive them for not coming to her wedding. And then she turned around and did the same goddamn thing to me. It's crazy. Yeah. But
So
you got to forgive yourself for it. You just have to.
Yeah.
I have to bow out here in a second.
Yeah,
but just.
Did you have a question, James?
I will have some later. I just don't have time right now. I just want to say
Feel
thank
free
you
to ask
for
me on
having
my
me.
channel or my posts, or
Absolutely,
if you catch me live somewhere.
So,
but yeah, and I guess as time went on though, and my life started to change, and my marriage started to grow, my community started to change, and my biological father's her conditions have changed. I've thought it very necessary to be communicative. And at first, in Christian nitty mind, it was, God has placed me in my biological father's life to save them, to tell them about Jesus, to get them to repent. And I remember specifically praying for Jesus to cure my biological father's transness. That's how much hate and disrespect and devaluing I wanted to do with that person's identity, that my God would essentially just erase the person that was standing in my life, right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
rewrite them, reprogram them, Lord Jesus. I need this person reprogrammed so that they could be saved.
It's an incredibly important point to bring up too, because that is what happens around the whole Christian narrative. And when we hear them say things like hate the sin, not the sinner, or I don't hate you, I actually love you. I actually love queer people. I love gay people. I love trans people. No, you don't. And the proof is in the pudding when the rubber meets the road. They're saying, "Oh yeah, I'm praying for Jesus to work in your heart. I believe you can change. I think you can stop living this lifestyle." Right?
Yeah,
all of that sort of weaponized rhetoric, but that's what it is. They're meeting with you at the coffee shop going, "I don't hate you. You're good to go with me. It's just my God that can't stand this sin of yours." And then they go home and pray for you to wake up tomorrow and not be gay anymore, or not be trans anymore. And I think we need to speak more directly to that specifically as the example of why this is not love, because at the end of the day, you want them to be different than who they are. Go ahead.
It would be just like saying, so you got got hetero Joe rolling up in your coffee shop, and he's like, "Yo, man, I'm just got done clocking my wife. It's so great to see you." And it's like, yeah, you know what? I've been praying that my God just lets you get pegged. Can I pray for that for you? That you wake up tomorrow and you just want to have all the butt sex? All of it. That's it. That's the only thing you want for the rest of your life. And from someone who has a biological penis, okay? That's what I want for you. I want that for you. They would be like, "Oh, that's so disgusting. Like, what is wrong with you?" What's wrong with you that you get off praying that way to your God, in my case? Right? Where did I get off, praying that kind of prayer for my own biological father? I tell you, it's messed up. It's messed up. It's not, and you're right. It's not love.
Yeah,
at all.
I mean, it's the same. But it's the same thing that I'm trying to get.
They don't like it when you turn the tables in the thought experiment, do they?
Yeah, it's the same thing I'm trying to get my family to understand about being an atheist. It's like you have this bigotry towards atheism, and even if you think you personally don't mind us, it's doctrinal. You have a doctrinal problem, because what you're basically turning around and saying, "Well, I think you got a good heart, Jay. So I think what's going to happen is when you die, you're going to get up there and my God's going to look over your life. He's going to judge your heart. He's going to be like, man, that Jay Bundy was a good dude. Welcome to heaven." And they don't recognize exactly what you said. You are telling me what you want for me is something I fundamentally reject. I am not a person who believes in God. Ergo, don't want to meet your God. Don't want to spend any time in your heaven. And you asserting that the evidence that I'm good to go with you is that I'm going to end up in heaven whether I like it or not is not the optimistic message you seem to think it is.
Right.
But it's exactly the parallel to what they're telling our LGBT fam.
And this is why I found it important to post the things that I have in the last week or so. Because Thursday, listening to Trump, I started to understand I started to understand that I don't want to live in a world where my kids become the weaponized bigots that I had to deal with. When it is nationwide policy to enforce the nuclear family and the roles of men and women, you know what that is? That's we need to erase the LGBTQ. We need to erase the non-traditional family. We need to teach our youth to be the next bigots. The next people who cannot tolerate something that doesn't fit easy boxes and definitions. And they're not going to understand that having these kinds of lines drawn of what's accepted, what's not, what's legal, what's illegal, that denying people the ability to make their own decisions in this area, they're going to walk around with this bias, and maybe even their parents are going to say, don't you break lockstep. Don't you step out of line with our culture and what you're learning at school, because that's going to create a lot of trouble for us. And you should be afraid of these people, their influence, because they could get us jailed or blah, blah, blah. All it will do is just further justify more hatred. It will keep the cycle going. And so when that became a public facing platform, I just had to do it. I had to pull the trigger and say, no more. Nitty ain't gonna shut up. Nitty's not just gonna sit here and be like, oh yeah, another turd sandwich just came out of Trump's mouth, but I guess that's the world we live in. No, I don't want this next generation to have this reinforced aversion to other humans. It's got to stop somewhere. So let's start stopping it with our channels, right? Our voices.
Yeah, and I think you got to have influence in the sphere where you can have influence.
Yeah.
And for us, that is that means our neighborhood, right? It means using our voices to have impact on the people that watch us, that listen to us, that we're friends with. And I think it's really important. Also, I do think there's a teaching aspect to all of this where a lot of people are trying to figure out how to respond to these issues. And by having these conversations, we're sort of modeling that for people in a really important way. Man, there's so many directions to go here. How did you from where you sit, what's going on like with the anti-trans stuff in the atheist community? Because we're talking sort of now about our neighborhood. Like, to me,
you mean with like the Dawkins type people, or what? Like the people who are like who are atheists but aligned conservative, you mean?
Yeah, that, or Doug or Price, like why are they people. Yeah, like what's up with that?
Jay, I think for the people that are irreligious, we'll say, and
Sure.
they want to allow all different like voices or political opinions on their channels, and they're not necessarily saying I think this way because the Bible says so. I think maybe some of them are just uneducated. Some of them are willfully ignorant. Like, there's plenty of scientific psychological content creators that are in the field and are dealing with the actual data and scholarly papers and studies about the brain, hormones, transness. And guess what? They have been for the last 50 fucking years. These dinosaurs want to go extinct on this issue. They don't want to take the time to go on Google Scholar or to watch the people that do their work, do the homework, or are in the field and saying, you guys are wrong about this. They don't want to be told they're wrong. They want it to be unempathetic and unapologetic about what they think. And I think some are not personally affected by it. It doesn't hit home for them. They don't think that this is a real issue for people. Sorry, it's not like I like what you said there. It's like they don't realize that this is their friend. This is their cousin. This is like the person that they might need someday, right? That can really contribute to the well-being, their well-being, their family's well-being. But they want to just sit back, ask questions, or not really wrestle with their preconceptions or whatever about people who are non-binary or people who don't identify with their assigned birth gender and things like that. That's what I think. And you know what? Maybe there are people who have come across the education and they just don't know what to do with it. They don't. And Scott said in the comments, the data is only as good as someone who's interpreting it. And that's true too, is that they're not really like putting the wires together to get to the next place or to grow from the information they're taking in. I don't know. I'm not in their head. I'm not in the, I don't
no, it's just what
maybe
you
there's
thought,
other, non-believer creators that are being hyper skeptical of the trans community or trans people. And they're entitled to that in their space. But, I don't think we should be accommodating and nicey when they come over here.
100%. So your family's still church participating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you worry about the rhetoric and messaging that they're getting as a result of that? Because you wanted to make sure that they're not the same way. Yeah.
So I guess the nice thing about the non-denominational that I was a part of is that they're not like the Westboro people. They're not like, they're fundy, but in other ways. And this kind of stuff for them isn't going to come up until probably like late middle school, high school. So I've got a couple of years. That's not to say that non-denominational community is so accepting that they would let a drag queen read Samson or something, right? A very long-haired male, by the way. They wouldn't let that happen per se in their community, but while at the same time, they were fine, like saying like, oh yeah, if you're trans, come to our church service. We're not gonna, be vitriolic and hateful towards particular people or ideas. But behind closed doors, the adults here will talk about these issues and perpetuate heteronormative political points and sociological points and structures, right? The wife is preferred to stay at home. the, you know, man is to be the breadwinner, blah, 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 that stuff.
So the other thing is, you touched a little bit on our community and, you know, not being so cozy about it. I really feel like that's the problem, right? Like one of the boundaries I've tried to lay down for today, for instance, is that there will absolutely be no debate, right? This is a day for us to be supportive. But I feel like a lot of times that'll be the thing. Like you want to make a stream that's all about, you know, let's show some love for our portion of the community, and that brings out the detractors.
Yep.
And it's like, that is so fundamentally abusive to me. It'd be one thing if we were out here trying to troll people to come and give us some pushback. Okay, fine, that makes sense. But when you try to support marginalized populations and then people show up to essentially bully you on your own channel, in your own community, because you had the audacity to speak out on these issues, man, that's some really kind of lowbrow shit, and it's unfortunate that we deal with that. I see Stephanie's here. Stephanie, we're just wrapping up the previous show, so she's just on time, which is good, and we'll switch over to Hot Program once my one black friend gets in here. He's not currently. Hey, Stephanie, good to see you.
Good to see you, Stephanie.
Yeah. You're good to go. I think she's putting in her headphones. But yeah, Nitty, thanks so much for doing this with us. You can feel free to hang out if you want for Hot Program.
Yeah, I'll be listening. I think my kids are gonna be watching some TV, and then I'll be on the exercise bike listening to y'all. Sure.
So you can mute and turn off your camera if you want, whatever you want to do. But appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, gang, we're going to get set up, take a quick break, and we will be right back for Hot Program when my one black friend gets here. So probably about 10 minutes or so. Please do tune in. Our guest will be Stephanie Helms, and we're looking forward to continuing our conversation for today. #TransIsBeautiful. If you'd like to join us in the meantime, we're in the cafe in Gather. The link is in the description, and it's pinned in the chat. So we'll be back shortly.
This makes sense.
I got that doubled up somehow, but that's all right. All right, gang, we'll see you in a little bit. In the name of the Darwin, the Dawkins, and the Christopher Hitchens, science bless you all. Poof.
Just gotta focus on yourself out here, y'all. Don't pay too much to the competition. Don't worry about what other people doing. Gotta trust your process. Worry about yourself, like I'm saying, man. It's bigger than me, bigger than you. You know what I mean? If you know what you gotta do, then do it. You always making excuses, we ain't got time for no excuses. You gotta get it, man. You know what I'm saying? Don't let nobody hold you back. Don't about that negativity, suggestions. Fuck all that shit, my nigga. Yeah. No competition. I'm feeling so fabulous. You niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet. Tell your homies stop gassing you, before we pull up and embarrass you. No competition. I'm feeling so fabulous, and you niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet. Tell your homies stop gassing you, before we pull up and embarrass you. Yeah. Still watching for clones, but they all over the globe. Probably why I say whoa. Young nigga never made money from stoves, but went hard with the zones. Me and Henny broke it down way before. Now we killing shows, just act like you know. Whoa. Got a new bitch from the bottom. Still never changed out my niggas from powders. I've been feeling golly, you get in my way, then you leave me no option. Niggas thinking it's a race, till we put them in their place. Leave their family with a ghost, then we pull off in a race. Competition, I'm feeling so fabulous, and you niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet.